You're watching The End Zone, sponsored by Lucky Star Casino.
Well, nobody said it was going to be an easy path to an NBA championship. It is now a 2-1 series in the Western Conference Finals as Minnesota takes Game 3, 143-101, an absolute beatdown in the Thunder's first road game of this Western Conference Finals, 42-point margin of victory. Along with Josh Calloway, I'm Colby Daniels. We'll break down everything over the next half hour. But, Josh, this felt like a very lethargic, sleepy start for the Thunder, and it just really snowballed from there.
Rough in every way. Just a kind of as bad as it could possibly get type of game for the Thunder. Couldn't shoot. Minnesota got hot. We knew that those role players that have not been playing well, Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, guys like that, were going to play better at home, and they did. And the question going in, when it's 2-0, can you match the intensity and the urgency that you knew Minnesota would play with? Their season was on the line tonight, and the Thunder didn't. They got hit in the mouth to start this game and really never got off the mat. Obviously, a complete beatdown tonight. It was that was right up there for the worst game of the entire season, you have to say, for the Thunder, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the first quarter might have been the worst quarter that we've seen this postseason, and one of the worst of the season as well. And look, it looked very much like a team that won its first two games and was going on the road, and a team in Minnesota that is fighting for its life, right? It's playoff life. I mean, if the Thunder go up 3-0 and only need one more win in the next four games, it's over. Like, you're not winning four straight against this team, and Minnesota played like their back was against the wall. That said, there were a lot of things, I think, that contributed to this thing getting completely out of control, because the reality is, and we've seen this all postseason, not just with the Thunder, but with other teams. A good example of this is Indiana and New York just the other night, right? Indiana showed up and played a miserable first half, but New York didn't make them pay for that. And what happened? They came out in the third quarter and the second half and ultimately took a 2-0 lead on the road. That happens in the NBA. So there are teams that start slow, and if the other team doesn't make you pay, then you can climb back into it. But Minnesota was locked and loaded, dialed in. They were the aggressors from the start. I thought Oklahoma City sort of allowed them to be the aggressors as well. And you had the role players knocking down shots, obviously.
Yeah, 100%. And Anthony Edwards, in that kind of spot, you want your stars to hopefully step up for you. He absolutely did. Thunder had no answer for him. He came out with kind of that assassin, like, we're not going down without a fight type of an attitude that you want to see from your star player if you're a Minnesota fan. He delivered. He was tremendous. We talked about the bench. And like you said, the Thunder just sloppy with the basketball, turned the ball over. They settled for way too many threes. That really hurt them. And then,
out of the gate.
Yeah, right out of the gate. And SGA had maybe his worst game of the entire year. I mean, it was his fewest points of the entire year, just 14. I mean, the guy's been automatic. He's been MVP, in this series, obviously averaging well over 30 points in the first two games. Tonight, he can never get it going. Like I said, it was just kind of everything you kind of were maybe worried about, like worst-case scenario. It really happened in this game tonight. In Minnesota, exactly what the doctor ordered for them to try and get back in this series and feel like, hey, we're right back in it. We're 2-1. Game 4 is back at our place again on Monday. And the Thunder got a lot to figure out. And it's disappointing, too, considering that OKC kind of already did this already in Game 3 against Memphis. Now, they got away with it because they're a lot better than Memphis, and John Morant got hurt. That certainly helped. But to kind of come out and do that same thing again, not ready to go when you're up 2-0 and have a chance to kind of put it away, really, is a little disappointing.
Yeah, Minnesota's clearly better than Memphis, and Minnesota didn't let the Thunder climb back into it. Memphis really just was not an obstacle at all. I asked you before Game 2 in our pregame if at some point this team was going to suffer from like an adrenaline dump, right? You have all this energy from the 7-game Denver series. You have this emotional Game 7 win. You have the emotional Game 1 win to start this Western Conference Finals. Shea wins the MVP. He gets the award. I wondered if it might happen in Game 2. It did not. Maybe this is finally them just being drained and the battery being low, and now they recharge for Game number 4. That said, I mean, it's a bad combination when you are on E and the other team's back is against the wall and they're playing with that level of urgency. But I thought the way the Thunder approached this game out of the gate looked like a team that was tired and a team that was low energy, because there was a moment in the first quarter where Dante DiVincenzo hits a 3. Thunder take a timeout. At that point, it was 21-9, a 12-point lead in the first quarter. The Thunder were 1 of 6 from 3 at that point with 4 turnovers. I mean, the offense just looked lazy and dreadful. And it really never got any better, right? Your big three go a combined 10 of 29 shooting on the night. Obviously, they didn't play down the stretch, while you have Anthony Edwards playing his most efficient basketball of the season. They're out-rebounded by 19 at the end of the day. And then speaking of role players playing better on the home floor, the big 8 for Minnesota, their 8 main rotational players were 17 of 32 from 3.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it all adds up to a rough night for the Thunder. And, you know, for me, this was an abomination, right? I'm not excusing anything. This was horrible, especially a chance, like we said, to go up 3-0 and to basically put it away. Nobody's literally ever come back from 3-0. So you kind of had a chance to, in essence, win the series tonight, and you no-showed the game. I don't know if I'm willing to put, like, panic button just yet. It almost was one of those situations where it was so bad and everything was so off that it's almost like, at the very least, you know, nobody played the fourth quarter.
Right.
So maybe you get a little bit of a rest there. You kind of can mentally reset. You know, you're in Minnesota, you're not traveling tomorrow or anything, and be back ready to go in Game 4. You know, so I've seen a lot of that of, oh boy, is this slipping? Is this thing going to flip now? I don't know if I'm willing to go there. It's definitely a series again.
Right.
But we'll see what happens in Game 4. I still think you feel okay if you're Oklahoma City. I still wouldn't be shocked at all if they played a lot better and won Game 4.
Right.
But this was a little bit of a reality check, maybe, you know, for this Thunder team. We'll see how they respond to, you know, back at home on Monday night.
I expected this to be a long series.
We did too. I just, I mean, it's okay to lose.
That's right.
You're allowed to lose.
It's unfortunate that it went the way that it did tonight, but it's still only 2-1. And I think going into these 2 games, I expected it to be a split. So you have an opportunity to I think, rebound from this blowout, and maybe they're a lot more hungry to start Game 4.
Sure.
Let's check in with our own Grant Palmer, who is at the Paycom Center. The Thunder watch party was tonight. I'm sure a lot of people probably bailing early, hitting the exits. Grant, what's going on downtown?
Yeah, guys, it was crazy in here tonight. People were fired up for Game 3, and even though there wasn't an actual game being played in here tonight, it sure did feel like it. Now, this was also a free event and the first time the Thunder have held an away game watch party inside the arena. Just like with any other game, you had the folks in the drum line rocking the arena, cheerleaders were dancing, Rumble the Bison was waving the OKC Thunder flag and beating on his big drum, and it was a lively environment. We asked some fans what they were going to do during the watch party.
Probably get some food and, I don't know, just get ready to cheer on the Thunder and hopefully get one game closer to a sweep, so.
Yeah, we were all hoping for a sweep this series, and I think that was probably on the minds of many just because of how hot OKC came out of the gates in games 1 and 2, you know, having very strong and dominant performances. But now OKC leads only 2-1 in this series, and hey, Thunder fam, you know, game on, because the Minnesota Timberwolves are not going down without a fight, guys.
All right, Grant. Well, hopefully the watch party that takes place for game number 4 is a much better atmosphere, because this one got away so quickly. I imagine Thunder fans were super excited at the start of it. You and I were super excited to see what this team would look like after the 7-game series that we can clearly say Oklahoma City improved in. How would they face their first real big adversity in the Western Conference Finals, which is a road game? Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to Monday. You know, this team has done a pretty good job responding all year, but certainly, you know, within this postseason. Back against the wall against Denver a couple times where it was like, you need to have this. They've been able to do it. Monday's another, you know, big test. We'll see how they respond. And, yeah, the watch party hopefully goes a little better on Monday. First time they ever had it, too. It was a big crowd out there, but not exactly a fun night, I think, of watching Thunder basketball. You know what else is not fun? The Thunder shooting 14 of 44 from three-point. I mean, anytime you shoot 44 threes in a game, that's a bad sign. But shooting 14 of 44 from 3, and again, it started early. They settled for threes, and that shot was not going down. That's a lot of what Minnesota did in Game 1. Yeah, things completely got away from them. 143-101, Minnesota takes game number 3. It's now a 2-1 series in favor of Oklahoma City with game number 4 on Monday night. Along with Josh Callaway, I'm Colby Daniels. We'll take a timeout. More post-game coverage coming up next on The End Zone. Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals goes to Minnesota, 143-101. It's now a 2-1 series in favor of the Thunder. Game 4 still in Minnesota on Monday night. We'll talk about adjustments that OKC needs to make.
Yeah.
Again, this was always going to be a tough series.
Sure.
The Minnesota Timberwolves were not going to lay down, but I think the effort given by the Thunder tonight was a little disappointing considering what they potentially could have done to put a stranglehold on this series. That is Josh Calloway. I'm Colby Daniels. Let's check in with another Thunder watch party. Our own Ryan Stockett is at Fassler Hall. Ryan, I would imagine it was an excited crowd early today, but that excitement probably wore off pretty quick.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate loss. Earlier today, the seats behind me were completely packed. The building behind me was full as well, just full of people excited for their team. And I managed to catch some people towards the end of the game and at the end of the game, and they're pretty disappointed with the results. I actually have an Oklahoma City fan here. This is Cam. Cam, what's going through your head right now?
It's a tough loss, but whenever they're shooting like that, it's hard to come back from it. But I think that we got Game 4 in Minnesota. It was a tough shooting performance from us, but I think with the leadership of Shea and then all the defense that we have, I think that we can come back.
Anything you hope goes better in the next game?
Shooting. I think that we can definitely shoot better from beyond the arc. It was a tough night shooting, but I think that we can pull it out next round.
Now, I understand this was your third time going to a watch party here. How was the attendance here? How was the excitement here?
It was awesome. The energy was electric. Everybody's cheering. Everybody on the same page. Everybody, it's our team, it's Oklahoma's team, and we got them. In Tulsa, Oklahoma City, wherever it is.
And I got time for just one more question. Who you got here?
I got Lou. Best defender in the league right here. Lou Dort.
Hey, I appreciate it, Cam. That was Cam, guys. Live in Tulsa, Ryan Stockett, News Channel 8.
Thanks, Ryan. Tough night for Lou Dort, who is the primary defender for Anthony Edwards, who went off tonight. He was efficient from the floor, 30 points in 30 minutes, right? I mean, he didn't even play down the stretch. He, by himself, Josh, outscored the Thunder in the first quarter. OKC had 14 first-quarter points. They trailed by 20 at the end of the first quarter. Anthony Edwards had 16 of those.
Yeah, he came out aggressive from the start, and like you said, Oklahoma City really no answers for him. And, they did a really good job on him in Game 1. He settled for a lot of threes. He was obviously much better in Game 2, but nobody else really joined him in that. Tonight it was really a team effort for Minnesota, and that's really the thing that scares you a little bit for OKC, is that it feels like everyone for the Timberwolves got a little bit of their swagger back tonight. Nas Reed, DiVincenzo, Mike Conley played better.
Right.
Julius Randle played better. Certainly he did in Game 2. So Anthony Edwards, he's going to kind of always get his. He was extra good tonight. But then, when everyone joins him, Minnesota's a really good team. We talked about that going into the series. They're tough to beat. You saw that tonight.
Let's talk about adjustments for Game 4, because we certainly saw adjustments in Game 3, and I think Anthony Edwards is where it starts, right? I thought he made it a point to play a more aggressive brand of basketball. You and I talked multiple times in Games 1 and 2 about how many times he settled for three-point shots when he had the opportunity to go downhill. He didn't do that tonight. I thought he was ultra aggressive. He went to the rim. He had multiple highlight type of layups. He also shot the ball well from outside, but I think that was part of him being aggressive and taking better threes as opposed to settling for threes. On the flip side, you saw the Thunder, I think, settling for threes early in this game. So if I had to start anywhere with a Game 4 adjustment, it's Oklahoma City going back to being aggressive and not just settling for threes early when that shot's not going down and you bury yourself in a hole the way they did. It becomes a tough mountain to climb, especially on the road.
Yeah, 100%. I felt like we talked about it during Game 2, and I was certainly afterward. The Thunder did a phenomenal job at generating easy looks, lots of dunks and layups. They were getting to the rim. They were getting to the foul line. Tonight, 44 threes, and you're not shooting a good percentage. Bad combo, obviously.
Right.
They got to just get back to playing Thunder basketball, which I know is kind of a cliche thing to say, but that was just not them. And that's not what they did in the first two games of the series to get that 2-0 lead. So, yeah, and I think above everything, too, and I think they will do this. I'm not really worried about it. Just coming out with a little more of an edge to start. They were not ready to play, it felt like. Or at the very least,
I completely agree with that.
They didn't match Minnesota's intensity. And the Timberwolves played like their season on the line tonight, and the Thunder played like a team that was up 2-0. And, that's a bad formula as well, especially on the road. So I'd imagine they'll respond better to, in Game 4 and be a little more, have that urgency, intensity early in the game. But they're going to need that because Minnesota, the pressure is still on them. I mean, they can't be down 3-1 coming back here for Game 5 on Wednesday. So you got to play like that. You can come out, ready to go because Minnesota's going to give it everything they got, again, to try and keep this thing alive.
I think that's a great way to put it. I don't know if they were flat because it's hard to measure whether you're flat if you're just not matching the same intensity that Minnesota had, and Minnesota obviously played with their hair on fire out of the gate. I will say this, what we've learned about this Thunder team so far, and especially in the Denver series, is they responded to adversity really well last series, right? I mean, you have the Game 1 collapse, and they showed up in a big way in Game number 2, had the blowout win. Game 3, you give up the fourth quarter 3 to Aaron Gordon. You go to overtime, and you get run out of the gym in overtime, and they responded with, I thought, a lot of toughness and grit in Game number 4. And then obviously you have the pivotal Game 5 in a 2-2 series. You have the Game 7. They showed, I think, a lot of toughness and grit when they were facing adversity in the last series. I don't know that I would necessarily say leading 2-1 is facing adversity, but getting blown out by 42 will be a national talking point for the next 48 hours until they play again. They're going to hear that, and they're going to feel some sort of way about that, I would assume.
100%. This is a very young Thunder team. They're a very online Thunder team, and they're going to see they're taking on the chin right now on social media and everything. As you'd expect, you lose a playoff game by 40, whatever it was, 42, 43 tonight. And so, how can they respond to that is going to be a big key. And also defensively, too. They were so good in the first 2 games, forcing a lot of turnovers, getting out in transition. Just didn't do that tonight. You made the note, just 4 turnovers in the first half. I mean, that was
Minnesota averages 15.
That was a ginormous X factor in the first 2 games that wasn't there tonight. It was the Thunder who were being sloppy with the ball and turning it over. So that's when the Thunder rolling. And they've said it themselves. Their defense, that's where it starts. When they go on those big Thunder runs, it starts on the defensive end, forcing turnovers. They just didn't do that tonight at all. And so they got to find a way to get back to that intensity. And maybe part of that was being tired, not having an edge, maybe a combination thereof, but whatever it was, they didn't do it tonight, and that's a big part of why they lost.
And some of that is also a credit to Minnesota just playing their best brand of basketball, right? I mean, this is as good as Minnesota can possibly play. I think this is as bad as the Thunder can possibly play. When the Thunder play at their best level and you get this version of Minnesota, it's a very competitive game. I don't believe that this version of Minnesota beats the Thunder by 40 no matter what. This was a perfect storm, and a 42-point blowout is the ultimate result. Along with Josh Callaway, I am Colby Daniels. We will take another timeout, and we're going to wrap things up, put a bow on this 42-point blowout as the Thunder look. Welcome back to a special edition of The End Zone. Along with Josh Callaway, I am Colby Daniels. Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals goes to the Minnesota Timberwolves, 143-101. They now are down by 1 game, getting ready for Game 4 on Monday night. Josh, still a few things I want to get to in terms of this game tonight, but before we do that and start to, I guess, get ready for Monday, let's check in one more time with Grant Palmer, who's out at the Paycom Center at the big Thunder watch party in OKC.
Yeah, guys, obviously really tough loss tonight, disappointing performance. But, I got to say, I wouldn't say fans are totally checked out yet. It's not completely the end of the world. I would say the fan base is resilient. Obviously there have been some people on scooters probably scooting away to the nearest bar trying to deal with the pain. But honestly, the energy I've gotten from tonight, pretty resilient, kind of unfazed. And, hopefully the Thunder are unfazed. I know this playoff run, they've pretty much been like either totally on or totally off, blowing teams out totally or, getting blown out like tonight. But the fans, I don't think are too worried, honestly. I've been hearing Thunder in 5, which could still very well happen. So I think the spirits are still pretty intact despite, a big loss tonight.
Thanks a lot. He makes a great point, and I think for the Thunder fan base, there's a reason to not be down about this team overall, right? I think one thing you have to clarify when you're talking about a game specifically is the comments are about those 4 quarters specifically, not the entirety of a 7-game series, right? I think there's a lot of disappointment in how the Thunder showed up tonight and how the Thunder played. Do I think they're going to show up that way in Game 4, in Game 5, in Game 6? No. I don't think anything we saw tonight necessarily makes me worry about the series overall. I just think it's a big miss in terms of the opportunity to put a stranglehold on the series in Game number 3. It's also a miss, I think, at really handling some road adversity for the first time in this series at least, and showing how you're going to respond to it, because they faced some adversity in the first quarter. And as soon as they faced adversity, it became a snowball in favor of Minnesota. And then I would even add, in the third quarter, it's obviously a 31-point lead at the half. In the third quarter, at one point, Lou Dort hits a three-pointer with 9 minutes to go in the third.
Yeah.
And you just think, like, if you can get this to somewhere between 10 and 14 by the end of the third quarter,
you kind of have a shot.
Which at that point, it's 22. It's a 22-point lead. You only need to outscore them by like 8 the rest of the quarter over the next 9 minutes, and you have a shot going into the fourth. And unfortunately, once again, when it kind of seems like there's a chance for them to climb back into it, and you're facing like this real opportunity to play, it turns into a 37-point Minnesota lead after the third quarter, and the game is over, and none of the starters play beyond that point.
Yeah, the word I just keep coming back to is disappointing. It's just disappointing. And again, like you said, it's not like I'm not smashing the panic button. The Thunder are in a great spot. They're up 2-1. They have home court. They played really well the first 2 games. Those games still happened, right? It's not like those games are washed away by what happened tonight. It just is, when you had a chance to essentially put the series away. And again, like I said earlier, that it kind of already happened once against Memphis, and they got it. Maybe because they got away with it is part of why they kind of fell into that trap again tonight. But yeah, it kind of leaves you feeling a little like you felt like they were maybe past a lapse like this because they'd just been playing so well. And it seemed like after that Denver series, that was almost like a ceiling had been broken through, and they're just back to the regular season Thunder. Like they're just this machine that's not going to be stopped. And they just kind of got caught not being ready to face this Timberwolves team with their season on the line. And that's a lot of like really good players over there and guys with like Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards that are not just going to lay down. They were going to give their best shot tonight, and the Thunder just didn't seem like they were totally ready for it mentally, which is again disappointing. Is it a referendum on the state of the franchise? Obviously not. They're still up 2-1. I still feel pretty good about where they sit going into even Game 4 on Monday, but definitely a bit of a punch to the gut tonight with the way the game went.
Tonight is massively disappointing, but in a weird way, you probably are less worried about the rest of the series than if tonight had been a 4-quarter slugfest that Minnesota ultimately wins down the stretch, right? That probably worries you more in Game 4 and 5 and 6 than losing by 42, because this is one of those that it just got away so early and snowballed so quickly that you almost just throw the whole thing out. Shea is not going to score 14 points again in this series, right? I mean, I would be stunned if that were to happen. It's literally his lowest point total of the entire season, regular season included.
It's crazy.
The big three are probably not going to go 10 for 29 combined shooting from the floor. And again, I'll just reiterate this. In the Denver series, we saw them bounce back in a big way. I anticipated at some point there would be some sort of energy dump from this team because they've just been playing at such a high level for so long with so many emotions that maybe tonight was just finally the game where there was, good or bad, there was just nothing in the tank, and now they're able to reset. But to your point earlier, you did get an opportunity to get some rest.
Yeah, no, 100%. I do think that, it's half a joke, but not really. The fact that you got beat so bad that you got to get everyone out in that fourth quarter. So everyone kind of had a half night from their workload, their typical minutes, amount. And you kind of come back a little bit back to the drawing board tomorrow and get ready for Monday. And, for the bright side for Thunder fans, you get another home game on Wednesday night. So, you're still in a good spot. Tonight was definitely a smack in the face I don't think anyone was expecting. And again, not that we thought they were going to sweep, because we did. We both thought this was going to be a long series.
I picked the Thunder in 7. So
I agreed. And, they got a lot to figure out before Monday. But you're in command. You're the team up 2-1. Minnesota's still got the pressure on them, so we'll see how they bounce back on Monday. Monday's going to be very, very interesting, though, obviously. We'll see how they can respond.
We'll see if Anthony Edwards approaches Game 4 the same way he approached tonight, but you're going to have to play better defense on him. Naz Reid finally showed up in this series.
That's a little scary.
And that's a little scary, but the Thunder are going to bounce back, and I'm geeked for game number 4 in Minnesota, Monday night at 7:30. For Josh Calloway, I'm Colby Daniels. This has been another special edition of The End Zone as we get ready for more Thunder playoff basketball.